Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. Tonight's video is possibly the most requested video, post, question, whatever. Every time I post anything and ask you what you want to see, whether that's on Instagram, YouTube, or just part of a Q&A, I am always asked about baby names that we love that we're not going to use. I love these videos, if I'm honest. I have gone through 5 million names, and if I'm really honest, that's probably not even an exaggeration. We've gone through so many, it's been ridiculous. In all honesty, I think our boy's name has been set for years. We have got both names like pretty much set in stone now. We have the first name and the middle name for both a boy or a girl. I'm so excited to know which it's going to be. But yeah, we have them both set in stone, but we did go through an awful lot to get there, particularly with the girl's name. I think with the boy's name, like I said, we've had it set in stone for years. And I think I said in a previous video, I think it was my 30-week vlog, I was just talking about how as soon as we actually got pregnant and as soon as our treatment worked, we suddenly started doubting the names that we'd picked. The girl's name was vetoed so quickly in the end, but the boy's name has actually stuck. So we have definitely got the boy's name. The boy's name, like I say, has been planned for years. The girl's name is a name that we had never ever considered. Now in this list, I've done both boys and girls. I'm gonna do 10 boys' names, 10 girls' names. There are names in this list that were absolutely our set in stone name, and we were certain that we were gonna name it that if it was a girl. And then it just, yeah, completely changed, and we've gone with something totally different to something that either of us had discussed before. It wasn't a name we'd ever even considered before. So I'm really excited about either name. I'm not going to be giving it away. It is a secret, but I have got 10 boys names and 10 girls names for you. I have said quite a lot that we are using Italian names. Granted, my child is only going to be a quarter Italian. Marco is half Italian. He did an awful lot of his childhood in Italy. He kind of moved back over there when he was young and lived there until his late teens. So he's fluent in the language. He is very much, I think, in touch with his Italian side. We really love the Italian culture. We love Italy. We, you know, have a very strong relationship with his Italian side of the family. And for us, it just made sense to keep that. Also, we obviously have an Italian surname. We just think there's more of a ring to it. We just prefer it. So we did decide to go with Italian names. We are planning on raising our child bilingual. And yeah, you know, our child, you know, is only a quarter Italian, but we feel like we really want to embrace that heritage. So yeah, so that's why we chose to go with an Italian name. However, some of the names on the list, I haven't just gone for Italian names because I know like there are certain names that I really do love, and that if we weren't set on using an Italian name, we would definitely consider, or I would definitely consider. Marco is very hard when it comes to names. He is impossible. I'll kind of give you some background as to why we're not using some of them, but I just thought I'd mix it up a bit and not just use Italian names. So I hope you like this video. I hope you maybe get some inspiration from it. Let me know in the comments which your favourite names on the list are, maybe some names that you've decided not to use, or what you did use ultimately. Did you use any of the names in this list? Let's crack on. So I'm going to start with the boys. I don't know why, but the boys are at the top of my list, and I think there's a couple of names on here that I actually think people are going to be quite surprised we're not using. There's been a couple of occasions on Instagram where I have kind of handed the reins over to you and I've said, what names do you think we're going to be using? This first boy's name comes up every single time by so many people, it's ridiculous. So I think a lot of people are kind of expecting us to use this name. So the very first name is Luca. So I do really like the name Luca, but it is absolutely not one that we will be using. One of the main reasons for that is that my mum's dog was called Luca. So my mum had, until just before Christmas, 2 Labradors. We sadly lost Luca just before Christmas. But yeah, there is no way on earth that I would call my child a name that my mum's dog was called. Her other one is called Gino. You met him in the vlog last week. So yeah, that's also a name that we won't be using, but isn't one that was on our list anyway. So Luca is a definite no on that basis. There was also the Disney film, wasn't there, Luca, which is a great film. It's obviously set in Italy. It's a really, really good film. We absolutely loved it, but we just, yeah, it's just not the name for us. The next name is Franco. Now, I love the name Franco, to the point where I nearly didn't put it in this video, because if we were to go through IVF again and we were to, you know, have a boy this time and then have another boy, I probably would use this name. I absolutely love the name Franco. I love the name Frank, and I just felt like it was really fitting. Also, Marco's a massive Chelsea fan, and so Frank Lampard definitely came into the conversation. But I really love it. I just really, really love the name Franco. I really like, and I think you'll see with a couple of, well, and definitely another one of the Italian names, I like names that are a bit New York Italian gangster, that have that, like, I don't know, that little edge to it, that kind of, I don't know, I just really, really like names like that. So Franco for me was an absolutely massive one, and was definitely one that we really, really considered. And if we hadn't gone for the name that we've gone for, then Franco would definitely be the next one on the list. The third name, just kind of continuing with my whole New York Italian gangster vibe, is Vincenzo. I love it. I absolutely love it. It was also a name that I'd never even thought of, and it was actually my brother-in-law that mentioned it, just kind of in passing, just when we were talking about boys' names. And I just love Vinny. I think it's great. I do have a friend with a dog called Vinny, which did kind of put me off a little bit, but I really love it. I think it's a great name. I just love, like I say, that Italian kind of gangster feel, and I feel like Vincenzo Vinny, I think it's just great, and I really, really like that. The next name is Elio, again an Italian name. Marco does have a family member called Elio, which is one of the reasons that we're not using it. I really like it. I just think it's a really nice soft name, but I think it's, I don't know, I just really, really like the name. It's always appealed to me. I'd never heard it before. I obviously started seeing Marco and was introduced to his cousin, I've just always really, really liked the name, so I think it was something that we would probably consider if there wasn't that family link. The next name is Leonardo. So Leonardo, Leo, Marco really loved the name, and it was a name that Marco has for years said that he would name his first son. I've never really, I don't know, I just never really gelled with it as much as he did. I think it's a beautiful name, but I also think Leo is a bit too common now. One thing I don't really want to use is a name that is really common. I prefer names that are a little bit unusual, not too unusual. Like there are certain names that I think are like, you know, if you want to go for a really out there name, then that's great for you, but I don't think I'm that kind of person to go with a really wild name. But I feel like Leo for me was just a little bit too popular. I didn't really want anything that was in like the name charts in the UK. I just, yeah, I don't know. There was just something about Leo that I wasn't particularly drawn to. The next name is Jack. So Jack, I actually think is a really beautiful name. Obviously it is a really old, really traditional name in England. I think it's lovely. I was potentially going to be Jack if I was a boy. I think my parents' names for me were either Jack or Thomas. So yeah, I was potentially going to be a Jack. I don't know, I just really like it. I think it's a really nice, quick name. A friend of mine had a baby about 6 months ago and he's called Jack. And I just love it. I think it is such a lovely name. But like I say, we chose Italian names, which is pretty much the reason why near enough all of the other names we're not using. The next one is Oliver, again an English name, so not using. It's a really popular name, so I think again it's probably one of the reasons we wouldn't have used it. But I do think Oliver is a really, really nice name. I just think it's nice, it's simple, it's traditional, and yeah, I think it's really nice. The only thing I don't like is I don't like shortening of names. I am quite picky with this, and when we've been picking our names, it has been, okay, what are people going to call them for short? So I do like names that are difficult to shorten. I'm not really a fan of the name Ollie, but I like Oliver. So I think I would definitely be that mother that when people shorten their name, I'd be like, his name's not Ollie, it's Oliver. And yeah, I think that just gets really annoying. So that would probably be one of the reasons that we wouldn't use it were we going for English names. The next one is Arlo, and as much as I say about popular names, I do think Arlo is becoming really popular. I think it is something you see quite a lot of. You've obviously got Arlo Parks as well, and I think people, you know, are becoming more and more aware of that name. I think it is a bit different. It was certainly one of the more different names that I liked. But yeah, I just think it's a really pretty name, and I think it suits. I think it's different enough to be a little bit unique, but not so unique that when they're like 40 it's gonna be your name's what? Like, I think, you know, I don't like names like that. Like, if you think that in years to come, I think you have to, as much as they're a cute little newborn, you have to remember eventually they are going to be an adult, and a working adult, and an old man, and you've just got to kind of take that into consideration. And Arlo for me isn't one of those names that is going to be problematic in 20 years time, and that child isn't going to go, oh my god, why did my parents call me this? So yeah, Arlo was a contender for non-Italian names. So the next name is Zachary, but we did also really consider the Italian version of Zachary, which is Zaccheo. I don't know if I'm actually saying that right. I think I am, but Zaccheo. Marco really loved the Italian version. It was a name we really considered. I do think it is such a beautiful name, and it is one of the names that's shortened. Zach, I really like. I think it's a really nice name. So that is another name, both English and Italian, that we considered. And then the 10th name finally is Ezra. Now, I really like Ezra. I think Ezra is again becoming a bit more popular. I had never heard of Ezra until Pretty Little Liars, I'll be honest. And yeah, I've just always loved it from then. I just thought it was a little bit more unique, really liked it. But again, it is becoming more popular now. I don't think it's as unique as it was, you know, 8 years ago or however long it was that I was watching Pretty Little Liars. God, that's made me feel quite old. Oh dear. Okay, so now we'll move on to the girls. The girls' name, right, the girls' names I have found so difficult, in the sense that I love so many of them. So every time I've been asked this on Instagram, I've probably given really different answers to what I'm going to give you now. Some of them I've definitely repeated, some of them, you know, have definitely been on those lists, but there are so many girls' names that I absolutely adored, especially Italian names, that Marco just really didn't like. Now, Marco the whole way through has kind of said to me, you have to think like a bully. And in my head, I'm like, why would you do that? But I do kind of understand what he's saying. So for near enough every name I came up with, Marco would really quickly come back with some kind of insult based on that name. And he was like, you've got to remember that they're going to be going through school and kids can be really horrible. And he's right. And so I think, you know, some of the things that he was saying, I think, were a bit far-fetched. But it was one of those where as soon as I'd got it in my head, that was it. He'd ruined that name for me. So the amount of girls' names we went through, like I say, was absolutely ridiculous. So on this list, I have included some that we really were going to use before we changed to the one that we've got now. But yeah, but like I say, there were so many, and I could honestly do probably about an hour's video on girls' names I love but I'm not using, and I could probably do another hour's video on names like girls' names I love that Marco wouldn't let me use. So okay, so the first name on my list was the name that we have had picked out for years. We, prior to IVF, always said that if we had a little girl, we would call her Aurelia. I really love the name. It's from Love Actually. There is a girl called Aurelia in Love Actually, but we were going to spell it slightly differently. We were going to spell it with an O, so it would be Orelia. I love it. I think it is such a beautiful name. I think it rolls off the tongue really, really nicely. Just love it. But for some reason, as soon as we found out that we were pregnant and we started talking about names, it just didn't feel right, and we just thought, no, do you know what? I don't think that is the name. I think that's the name that we had picked, but now, like I say, it just didn't feel right, so we decided not to go with Aurelia. But that's our first name. The second name we really love but aren't using was actually in our top 3, and that was Alessia. I love the name Alessia. I think it is so nice. Marco has been quite strict with, I say strict, like I'm making it sound like some kind of school teacher. He has been quite adamant with the Italian names that he doesn't want a name that like is said to be Italian but isn't. So names like, I say isn't, but like names like Mia, for example, he's very much like, if you go to Italy, you're not really going to meet a Mia, because in Italy it means mine. Bella. There are a lot of names where if you Google Italian names, it will come up with like Italian inspired names that people in America are called but nobody in Italy is called, like Brianna, names like that. So he was quite firm on the, because he lived there, he was like, if I never met anybody with that name, I'm gonna kind of veto it. Alessia, he said that he went to school with a girl called Alessia, had always loved that name and always thought that when he had a child, if he had a little girl, he would call it Alessia. And I really liked it. What's put us off is that we think too many people will say Alessia, and I don't, for whatever reason, I'm not a fan of the name Alessia, no offense if that's your name. And I just didn't want that confusion. So for us, we just decided no. We also didn't want it shortening to Ali. And so that was another reason that we just decided not to. But for whatever reason, we really, really love the name Alessia, but we did decide not to use it, but it was third on our list. So second on our list, and again, I really thought about not putting it on this list. So it's the third name in this list, but it was second in our short list. This was the name we had settled on before we came across the name we are now using. So I'm saying it's second in line because, you know, I might regret putting it in this video, because if our child comes out and we decide that they look nothing like the name that we've picked, this will be the name that we use. And it's actually Aria, which I know is really common and goes against everything I have said, but we really love it. So in Italy, it actually translates, like the literal translation is air. So it is one of those names. Again, it goes against everything Marco said, where if we were to go to Italy, you probably wouldn't meet many Arias. There is a Saint Aria of Rome, and it does kind of also, there is like a translation where it kind of means melody as well. But we just really liked it, and it went really well with our middle name, and we were pretty set. In fact, I would say we were 99.9% sure that we were gonna call our child Aria, and then we read something with the name that we have now picked, and we were like, actually, we really love that. And yeah, so Aria was kind of demoted. But like I say, I do think the only problem that I really had with Aria the whole way through, which did take me some getting over, if you like, is the fact that it is now quite a popular name in the UK. And I know there's quite a few people on Instagram that follow me that have messaged me previously, and I know that their daughters are called Aria, and it was just a bit too common for me. But I loved it enough to kind of let that slide. And I think when you have the right name, you do let those kind of petty things slide. So yeah, so our backup name, if you like, is Aria, but I really don't think that we will be using it, which is why I decided to put it in this list. So fourth on the list is Isabella. Again, this is a name that I know a lot of you, whenever I do these questions and I kind of say to you, what do you think we're going to pick? Isabella is a name that comes up an awful lot. The reason we've not gone with Isabella is A, because I think it's quite an obvious name. I think if you think Italian girls' names, you think Isabella, you think Gabriella, you think Daniela. But Isabella, for me, I don't like Izzy Itzo. I think Izzy Itzo sounds like a porn star. A lot of people have said to me, oh, I really like it. I think it's got a bit of a ring to it. I honestly feel like if you were to see Izzy Itzo on Pornhub, you would not think twice. So for me, it was just an absolute no. I just felt like it was too much. Like, I think that's the only way I can describe it. I just really I just don't like it. I really don't like it at all when you shorten it. And I'm also not keen on Bella. I think Bella is like, you know, I know too many dogs called Bella and it puts me off. So yeah, so Izzy Itzo for me was just a no. Some people do like it, like, you know, I think Marco didn't quite see it the same way as me, but then I said it to somebody else and they were like, oh my God, now you've said it. And so that was it. And I just didn't really want to give my tiny little baby that name. So that was it for me. The next name is Sienna. I love the name Sienna, but with one N. I would spell it like the city. I absolutely adore the name Sienna. It was a name that years ago Marco and I did say that we would probably use, but since we started trying, so in the last 7 years, we've had 2 Siennas born into the family, and we just feel like we don't want to add a third, and therefore we just ruled it out for that reason. So the next name is Olivia. I love the name Olivia. It's a very popular name in the UK. I think it's a really pretty name. I think it's not a simple name, but I think it's traditional and yet still has that kind of elegance. It rolls off the tongue really nicely. There's a reason it has been popular in the UK for as long as it has been. I have a very good friend called Olivia, which is one of the reasons that we're not using it, but I really love it, and did try to convince Marco that it was a name to consider, but on the basis it's not Italian, we kind of, you know, ruled it out quite quickly. The next name is Isla. I have always loved the name Isla. I think it's so pretty. Again, it's getting a bit more common now. I know when I was a teenager, I knew a girl called Isla and I always really loved her name. But like I say, the older I've kind of got, the more people seem to be using it for their baby. When I worked at my last job, one of my supervisors was having a baby girl and we used to like talk about names all the time. I suggested Isla to him, he used it. And I just don't think it's the right name for us. The next name is another Italian name. This one is Fiorella. So I really love Fiorella. I think it's a beautiful name. Fiorella. I just love it. I just really, really love Fiorella, and I really like Fi for short. I just thought it was quite cool. But yeah, I personally wouldn't shorten it, but I really liked it. The simple reason that we're not using it is because Marco didn't like it. So I keep telling him though, I have told him on numerous occasions that if he keeps disputing names, although we have settled on it now, but I have said if when the baby's born and we can't decide because for whatever reason it doesn't look like that name, if he gives me a hard time, I will go register it by myself and I will call it whatever I want. I won't actually do that before anybody thinks I'm an absolute toolbox, but it is really annoying. So the next name is Ophelia. I really like this name. The reason we are not using the name Ophelia is because it is one of the names that Marco instantly came back with a mean response, let's say, and so I decided not to use it. I mean, he'd already decided not to use it, but we decided not to use it, but it is a name that I absolutely love. But yeah, I'm not going to ruin it for you because I think I definitely know of one person who follows me who uses that name. But yeah, it immediately he said, who was it that said it? Was it Terry Wogan? I actually don't know who said it, but there was a famous person who made a joke about the name Ophelia. And yeah, it kind of followed the lines of Ophelia, I feel ya. And yeah, so as soon as I said Ophelia, that was Marco's response. I also suggested it to my mum, who came back with the same response. So for me, that instantly ruled it out. So that's why we're not using Ophelia, but I do think it's a beautiful name. And then finally, I have noticed that all of my girls' names do have that very feminine A ending. Obviously some of them are Italian, but as you can tell, they're the kind of names I like. The final name on my list is Olive, which I do think is a bit out there for me. I do think it's a little bit different. Again, it's a more common name now. I don't think it's really common, but I think you hear of more Olives. If we weren't going for an Italian name, then maybe I would have thrown it into the mix with Marco. It is one that I've never really thrown into the mix at all. But I do really like it. My only concern with it is as the baby gets older and they are an adult, would it have that same effect, or is it a name that suits a toddler? I don't know. I didn't really think about it in that much detail, but yeah, I don't know. But I really like the name Olive. I think it's a lovely name, and it would have been one that I would have definitely considered if we weren't going for Italian names. So there you have it. You have 20 names there. You have 10 boys, 10 girls of names that we love but we're not using. I hope you liked it. Like I say, let me know in the comments what names you would use, if there's any names on that list that you really love, and yeah, maybe you could even put in a few guesses of names that you think we might actually use. So yeah, I'm excited, and I hope you like the names that we've picked when we pick them. I mean, I'll be really honest, I'm not that bothered if we don't, because we're not, you know, we like them, so that's all that matters. But yeah, let me know, what names do you think that we will use? So now you know the ones that we're not. Hopefully that will, you know, give you a few more ideas. But thanks for watching. I will see you on Sunday for my 32-week vlog. And yeah, have a great week. I'll see you on Sunday.